Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Business Incorporated, coming to you live from Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwago. On the show today, Nigeria plans to sell $5.5 billion of Eurobonds by year end. Ghana's GDP growth rises to 9% in Q2 of 2017. Plus, rating agency Fitch wants ANC infighting to hit South Africa economic growth. Let's get started from Nigeria, where the country plans to sell as much as $5.5 billion of Eurobonds in the next 3 months to fund capital projects and replace local currency debt. That would bring the amount raised through Eurobond sales by the country this year to more than $7 billion. The Debt Management Office explains that the government wants to raise $2.5 billion in October to help fund the 7.4 trillion naira 2017 budget. The remaining $3 billion will be sold before the end of the year to replace naira-denominated debt. The yield on Nigeria's $500 million of Eurobonds due July 2023 surged 15 basis points, the most since July the 6th, to 5.45%, while that on the February 2032 securities climbed 11 basis points to 6.85% by the close in London. And to the equities market, it was a red day for Nigeria and South African markets at intraday today, as both markets traded low by 0.48% and 0.14% each. Looking at those numbers there, we could see that Egypt markets reversed Wednesday's losses to trade higher at 1.01%. Kenya closed low 0.61% on Wednesday. In the meantime, the Securities and Exchange Commission today brought charges of criminal, conspiracy, breach of trust, and cheating against 2 former executives of a closed-down investment and securities trading group, BGL PLC. The first defendant, Mr. Albert Okumaba, who was the former group managing director of the BGL Group, was absent at the Abuja Magistrate Court, while his deputy, Mr. Chibundu Edozie, was present. Mr. Edozie was, however, granted bail in the sum of 1 million naira and to present a surety in the capacity of a level 12 public servant. The magistrate has deferred hearing in the BGL Group case to November the 6th. And in the Middle East, banking shares helped take the Saudi index slightly higher at intraday after news that the government has priced a $12.5 billion international bond issue, while the rest of the region was mixed. The sovereign bond sale attracted around $40 billion and settlement is expected by October 4. The successful issue is good news for the banking sector because it will help to increase liquidity and gives the government financial room to move ahead with projects. The Dubai index was up 0.6%, with most activity focused on shares often traded by day traders. Union Properties rose 0.6%, but Builder, Drake & Skoll fell 0.5%. In Abu Dhabi, the index was down 0.22%. Qatar's index slipped 1.29%, weighed down by declines in most banking shares. The largest, Qatar National Bank, lost 0.6%. Move on now to Europe, where markets edged slightly higher in early trade after President Donald Trump unveiled much-awaited tax plans. Our investors are also monitoring comments from Brexit negotiators as the 4th round of talks comes to an end. Now let's cross over to Frankfurt to speak to my colleague Conrad Busen for more. Good afternoon, Conrad. Thank you to have you again on the show.
Hello, Jimmy. Hello, Lagos.
Good to have you, Conrad. Now, let's start off in Germany, where Finance Minister Wolfgang Schäuble has resigned to become the president of the parliament. So who is being considered here as the new finance chief, and what are the expectations?
It's really too early to talk names, Jimmy. This coalition, or this expected coalition here for Germany, is something new. We never had a coalition of the Christian Democrats, of Chancellor Angela Merkel, in combination with the Green Party and the Liberal Democrats in one government. And they're only about to start talking about a coalition, so it's really too early to think about who will become the next Minister for Financial Affairs. But still, the news that Wolfgang Schäuble will not be the next finance minister is a greatly discussed piece of news here in Germany, but under a bit of a different angle. This has to do with the fact that the right-wing AfD party will become a member of the new parliament, the Bundestag. That's the name we give to our parliament here. Wolfgang Schäuble, the ex-finance minister, is expected to become the new president of the parliament, of the Bundestag. It's a very representative role, but in terms of protocol, it still is the highest ranking political post you can have here in Germany. And the fact that he's considered to become the new president of the Bundestag is considered to be a sign to the AfD. This right-wing party is expected to play the rule breaker, to play a bit the taboo breaker in the new legislative period, and putting a very renowned and very authoritative person like Wolfgang Schäuble in this high position of president of the Bundestag is seen as a sign to the new right-wing party not to play games with the Bundestag.
Well, Conrad, we'll wait and see who emerges the new finance minister. Well, let's cross over to the other side of the Atlantic. U.S. President Donald Trump has unveiled his much-awaited tax plans. Now, what's in the Trump's tax proposals for Europe and why?
Two aspects of this tax proposal are really important and very interesting from a European angle. Number one is the corporate tax rate, which is, as Trump promises, going to be cut from 35% at the moment down to 20%. And the other thing is that Trump wants to tax incentive the repatriation of earnings that American companies have abroad. Offshore income should be repatriated to the US, and this should be tax incentivized. There should be a tax incentive for those companies if they repatriate this money to the US. This is important because by lowering the corporate tax rate, it looks like the US is also going to enter this race of nations of ever lower corporate tax rates. We know this here quite well in Europe as well. The different European nations have different corporate tax rates, and there is an ongoing fight amongst nations about the negative effect of this race to ever lower tax rates. The second thing is also important because many of the offshore gains that American companies have made are sort of parked in European countries like Luxembourg or Ireland. Apple, for example, is a company that makes a lot of money worldwide, but it has its tax headquarters in Ireland. It's paying income tax there, which is very, very low. And it's keeping the money in Ireland, not repatriating it to the United States because it wants to avoid the tax in the US. If this money by Apple is now going to get back into the United States, this would also mean that the business model of Ireland to really, attract companies like Apple with its low corporate tax rates wouldn't work as well as it did in the past.
Well, Conrad, looking behind you there, I can see the DAX moving on a zigzag form today, though presently it's slightly up at this moment. Now, is the Trump's tax plans a market trading theme, and what are our market participants focusing on as the month drags to a close?
Well, the tax plans, of course, are a bit of an inspiration for equity markets, but the immediate driver for share prices here in Frankfurt today, the DAX is not so far away anymore from its recent record high. That is that the leading economic institutes here in Germany have increased their growth predictions for the German economy quite significantly. They now expect the economy here in Germany to grow by about 2% this year. And also next year and also for 2019, they predict an annual growth of GDP of 2% roundabout. This also means that we are going to face a very loud discussion about tax cuts here in Germany, because the budget surplus for the new government, for the federal government, will be really high. The institutes predict that this budget surplus this year will be 28 billion euros. For next year, they predict 37 billion euros of budget surplus. And for the year 2019, they predict a budget surplus of 44 billion euros. The three parties that are set to form a coalition, and I told you about them earlier, they will not be able to avoid even at least considering giving back some of this money to the taxpayers in form of tax cuts.
Right, that's a huge one there, Conrad. Thank you very much for your time. I guess we just have one day to go, so I hope to see you tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of the day.